There are emails that the NFL desperately wishes you would forget. These emails contain words so damaging that a head coach who had just led his team to 3 consecutive wins was forced to resign within hours of their release. Words that ended a career. Words that destroyed a reputation built over 30 years. But here's what the NFL does not want you to know. Those emails were sitting in league offices for months before they were leaked. The NFL had them. They read them. And they chose the exact moment to release them for maximum damage. This is scandal number 1 on our countdown. But before we get there, I need to take you through 9 other moments that prove the Oakland Raiders have the most controversial, most shocking, and most unbelievable history in professional sports. These are not just embarrassing losses or bad draft picks. These are crimes, betrayals, and disasters that no other franchise could survive. But the Raiders did not just survive. They turned scandal into identity. They wore the controversy like armor. They became the team that the NFL establishment feared and hated in equal measure. Tonight, I'm counting down the 10 worst scandals in Raiders history. And by number 1, you will understand why this franchise has spent 50 years at war with the league that profits from them. Let me start at number 10.
Number 10. The criminal element controversy. 1976. This scandal started 50 years ago, and the Raiders never recovered their reputation. December 23, 1976. Oakland Raiders versus Pittsburgh Steelers. AFC Championship game. The game is brutal, even by 1970 standards. Players are throwing punches, officials are struggling to maintain control. The violence is escalating beyond football into something darker. Late in the game, Raiders safety George Atkinson delivers a forearm to the back of Steelers receiver Lynn Swann's head. The hit is vicious. Swann crumples to the turf, unconscious. He is carried off the field on a stretcher. The hit is legal by 1976 rules. No flag is thrown, no penalty is assessed. This is simply how football is played in this era. But what happens after the game changes everything. 3 days later, Steelers head coach Chuck Noll holds a press conference, and he says something that will haunt the Raiders for decades. Noll declares that there is a criminal element in professional football. He specifically names George Atkinson and other Raiders defenders. He calls them thugs. He suggests they should be prosecuted for assault. The accusation is explosive. A head coach is publicly calling opposing players criminals on national television. The media runs with the story. Suddenly, the Raiders are not just a physical team. They are dangerous. They are outside the boundaries of acceptable football.
George Atkinson sues Chuck Noll for defamation. The case goes to trial. And here is where the story gets truly interesting. During the trial, evidence emerges that the Steelers themselves employed equally violent tactics. Pittsburgh players testify about their own team's brutal practices. The hypocrisy is exposed. Atkinson wins the case. The jury finds that Noll's accusations were not protected speech. But the damage to the Raiders' reputation is permanent. From that moment forward, the Raiders are labeled the dirty team, the criminal organization, the franchise that plays outside the rules. The NFL does nothing to correct this narrative. In fact, they benefit from it. The Raiders become the villains that every other team can rally against. The bad guys that make everyone else look good by comparison. 50 years later, that label still follows the franchise. And it all started with Chuck Noll's press conference in 1976.
Number 9. Lyle Alzado and steroid abuse. 1980s. He was the most feared man in the NFL. Steroids killed him. Lyle Alzado played for the Raiders from 1982 to 1985. He was a defensive end who terrorized quarterbacks with a fury that seemed inhuman. He played every snap like it was personal, like he was trying to hurt someone. And he was.
because Lyle Alzado was fueled by steroids. In 1991, Alzado was diagnosed with brain cancer. He was 42 years old. The disease was aggressive and inoperable. And Alzado did something that no athlete had done before. He admitted publicly that his steroid use had caused his cancer. In a Sports Illustrated interview, Alzado confessed that he had been using steroids since college. He detailed the amounts he took, the side effects he experienced, and the permanent damage he had inflicted on his body. He said he believed the steroids had caused his brain tumor. Medical experts disputed this claim, stating there was no proven link between steroid use and brain cancer. But Alzado was convinced. He spent his final months warning young athletes about the dangers of performance-enhancing drugs. He appeared on television looking frail and sick, a shell of the monster who had dominated NFL offensive lines. Lyle Alzado died on May 14, 1992. He was 43 years old. His confession forced the NFL to confront a truth they had been ignoring for decades. Steroid use was rampant in professional football. Players were destroying their bodies to gain competitive advantages, and the league was doing nothing to stop it. The Raiders were not responsible for Alzado's choices, but his story became forever linked to the franchise, the team that employed the most feared steroid user in football history.
Number 8. Darrell Russell drug suspensions, 2001 to 2002. The Raiders thought they had a generational talent. They were dead wrong. Darrell Russell was a defensive tackle selected second overall in the 1997 NFL Draft. He was massive, fast, and skilled beyond his years. He made the Pro Bowl in his second season. He looked like a future Hall of Famer. But Russell had demons that football could not fix. In 2001, Russell tested positive for ecstasy. He was suspended for 4 games. When he returned, he played well enough to convince the Raiders that the suspension was a one-time mistake. It was not. In 2002, Russell tested positive again. This time, the suspension was for the entire season. The Raiders released him. His career was effectively over at age 26. But the story gets worse. In 2004, Russell was involved in a criminal case where he and 2 other men were accused of drugging and sexually assaulting a woman. The case was eventually settled out of court, but the allegations destroyed what remained of Russell's reputation. In December 2005, Darrell Russell died in a car accident. He was 30 years old. His story represents the tragic waste of potential that happens when addiction and poor decisions destroy a career. The Raiders invested enormous resources in Russell. They believed he would anchor their defense for a decade. Instead, they got 3 productive seasons before everything collapsed.
Number 7. Al Davis lawsuits against the NFL, 1980s to 1990s. One owner declared war on the entire NFL and won. Al Davis was not like other NFL owners. He did not seek approval from his peers. He did not participate in the gentlemen's agreements that governed league decisions. He operated the Raiders as an independent entity that happened to play in the NFL. This philosophy led to inevitable conflict. In 1980, Davis wanted to move the Raiders from Oakland to Los Angeles. The NFL refused to approve the relocation. They voted against it. They told Davis he could not move his team. Davis sued the NFL under antitrust law. He argued that the league was operating as an illegal monopoly by preventing him from relocating his business. The case went to trial, and Davis won. The jury awarded the Raiders $35 million in damages. The team moved to Los Angeles in 1982, and Al Davis established himself as the only owner who had successfully defied the NFL and won. But the victory came with consequences. The NFL never forgave Davis for the lawsuit. For the next 25 years, league officials treated the Raiders as outsiders. Calls went against Oakland more than any other team. Rule changes seemed designed to target Raiders' tactics.
The franchise was systematically marginalized. Davis sued the NFL again in the 1990s over stadium issues. Again, he won. But each victory deepened the animosity between the Raiders and the league establishment. By the time Davis died in 2011, he had spent 3 decades at war with the organization he helped build. His lawsuits changed NFL policy and established precedents that other owners would later use. But the scandal was not the lawsuits themselves. The scandal was what the NFL did in response. The systematic campaign to punish the Raiders for daring to challenge authority.
Number 6. Tom Cable breaks coach's jaw. 2009. The Raiders head coach did not fight opponents. He fought his own staff. August 5th, 2009, Raiders training camp, Napa, California. Head coach Tom Cable is in a meeting with his assistant coaches discussing game planning. A disagreement arises about defensive schemes. The disagreement escalates into an argument. And then Tom Cable allegedly punches assistant coach Randy Hansen in the face. Hansen's jaw is broken. He requires medical treatment. The incident is reported to police. An investigation begins. Tom Cable denies throwing a punch. He claims Hansen fell and hit his face on a table. Other coaches in the room give conflicting accounts. Some support Cable's version. Others suggest the assault happened. The NFL conducts its own investigation. They find no conclusive evidence that Cable struck Hansen. No charges are filed. Cable keeps his job. But the damage to the Raiders' reputation is severe. A head coach accusing of assaulting his own assistant coach. Internal chaos exposed to the entire league. Questions about organizational culture and leadership. Cable coached the Raiders through the 2010 season before being fired. He later found work as an offensive line coach with other teams. But the shadow of that August night in Napa followed him for the rest of his career. The scandal revealed something disturbing about the Raiders organization during this period. They were so dysfunctional that violence among the coaching staff was plausible. That says everything about how far the franchise had fallen. Number 5. Bill Romanowski destroys teammate. 2003. He did not end careers on game day. He ended them in practice. August 25th, 2003. Oakland Raiders training camp. Bill Romanowski, a linebacker with a reputation for borderline psychotic intensity, is participating in a routine practice drill. He gets into a confrontation with teammate Marcus Williams, a backup tight end. The confrontation escalates, and Romanowski punches Williams in the face. The punch fractures Williams' eye socket. The injury is so severe that Williams never plays professional football again. His career is over at age 24 because his own teammate assaulted him during practice. Romanowski's fined by the team but faces no criminal charges. Williams sues Romanowski in civil court. The case is settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. But the incident exposes something toxic about Romanowski's entire career. This was not an isolated moment of rage. This was a pattern. Romanowski had a history of dirty plays that injured opponents. He was fined multiple times for late hits, kicking players, and spitting on opponents. He later admitted to using steroids throughout his career. The Raiders employed this player knowing his history. They tolerated his behavior because he was productive on the field. When he finally crossed the line and ended a teammate's career, they issued a small fine and moved on. This scandal represents the Raiders at their worst, valuing winning over safety, enabling dangerous behavior, sacrificing the career of a young player to protect a veteran who should have been removed from the team years earlier. Number 4. Barrett Robbins Super Bowl disappearance. 2003. The night before the biggest game of his life, he completely disappeared. January 24, 2003, San Diego, California. The Oakland Raiders are preparing for Super Bowl 37 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Barrett Robbins is the Raiders' starting center, a Pro Bowl player, one of the most important pieces of an offensive line that has protected Rich Gannon all season. The night before the Super Bowl, Robbins is supposed to be at the team hotel, resting, preparing mentally for the biggest game of his career. Instead, he crosses the border into Tijuana, Mexico. What happens over the next several hours has never been fully explained. Robbins later revealed that he suffers from bipolar disorder and had stopped taking his medication. He experienced a manic episode. He believed the Raiders had already won the Super Bowl and were celebrating. He spent the night partying in Tijuana while his teammates searched frantically for him. He did not return to San Diego until the next morning. By then, he was incoherent and clearly unwell. The Raiders ruled him out of the Super Bowl. They inserted a backup center who had not practiced with the first team. The offensive line, which had been Oakland's strength all season, was compromised. The Buccaneers destroyed the Raiders 48-21. While Barrett Robbins' absence was not the only reason Oakland lost, it symbolized how unprepared and chaotic the team had become. Robbins' story is tragic. He was battling an illness he did not fully understand. He needed help, not judgment. But the scandal is how the Raiders handled the situation. They had known about Robbins' mental health issues. They had protocols in place. And somehow, their Pro Bowl center still managed to disappear the night before the Super Bowl. This incident revealed organizational dysfunction at the highest level.
Number 3, Antonio Brown. Complete chaos. 2019. They paid $50 million for a player who never stepped on the field. March 9th, 2019. The Oakland Raiders trade for Antonio Brown, one of the most talented receivers in NFL history. They give up 3rd and 5th round picks. They agree to a contract extension worth $50 million over 3 years. On paper, this looks like a franchise-altering acquisition. Pairing Brown with Derek Carr should create one of the best offenses in football. Instead, it creates one of the most bizarre sagas in sports history. Before training camp, Brown suffers frostbite on his feet from a cryotherapy accident. He misses practices. When he does attend, he refuses to wear the helmet the NFL mandates, insisting on using his old helmet, which no longer meets safety standards. The helmet dispute drags on for weeks. Brown threatens retirement if he cannot wear his preferred helmet. The Raiders try to accommodate him. The NFL refuses to grant an exception. Eventually, Brown agrees to wear an approved helmet. But by now, other issues have emerged. Brown gets into a confrontation with general manager Mike Mayock. He calls Mayock a slur. He posts internal team documents on social media. He records a phone call with head coach John Gruden and releases it publicly without permission. The Raiders fine Brown for conduct detrimental to the team. Brown demands his release. The team grants it. Antonio Brown never plays a single regular season snap for the Oakland Raiders. The team receives nothing in return for the trade. The contract guarantees are voided. The entire acquisition is a complete disaster. But the chaos does not end there. Brown signs with the New England Patriots days later. He plays one game before being released amid sexual assault allegations. His career implodes within months. The Raiders scandal is not that Brown was troubled. The scandal is that Oakland ignored every warning sign. They traded for a player who had burned bridges in Pittsburgh. They gave him a massive contract without adequate safeguards. They allowed him to dominate headlines and distract the entire organization. Number 2, Henry Ruggs' fatal DUI, 2021. He had everything, a promising career, millions of dollars. Then one night changed everything forever. November 2nd, 2021, 3:39 in the morning, Las Vegas, Nevada. Henry Ruggs, a wide receiver for the Las Vegas Raiders, is driving his Corvette at 156 miles per hour. His blood alcohol level is .161, twice the legal limit in Nevada. Ruggs' car slams into the rear of a Toyota RAV4 driven by 23-year-old Tina Tinter. The impact causes the RAV4 to burst into flames. Tina Tinter and her dog Max are trapped inside the burning vehicle. Witnesses try desperately to rescue them. The heat is too intense. They cannot reach her. Tina Tinter dies at the scene. Her dog dies with her. Henry Ruggs is arrested and charged with DUI resulting in death. The evidence is overwhelming. Surveillance footage, blood tests, witness statements. There is no defense. Ruggs pleads guilty and is sentenced to 3 to 10 years in prison. His NFL career is over at age 22. The millions he earned are gone. His future is destroyed. But more importantly, Tina Tinter is dead. A young woman with her entire life ahead of her was killed because a professional athlete made an unforgivable decision to drive drunk at over 150 miles per hour.
The Raiders immediately released Ruggs. They made the right decision. But the scandal is not how they handled it. The scandal is that this happened at all. The NFL has spent decades preaching about player conduct and responsibility. Teams provide drivers. They offer education programs. They have every resource available to prevent exactly this kind of tragedy. And yet Henry Ruggs still got behind the wheel drunk and killed someone. This is the most tragic scandal on our list. Not because of what it did to the Raiders, but because of what it did to Tina Tinter and her family. Number 1. John Gruden email scandal, 2021. He was the most beloved coach in Raiders history. Then his secret emails destroyed everything. October 8th, 2021. The Las Vegas Raiders are 3-1. They have just defeated the Los Angeles Chargers on Monday Night Football. Head coach John Gruden is being discussed as a Coach of the Year candidate. 48 hours later, Gruden resigns in disgrace. The New York Times publishes emails that Gruden sent between 2011 and 2018 while he was working as an ESPN analyst. The emails contain racist language describing NFL Players Association Executive Director DeMaurice Smith. They contain homophobic slurs targeting Michael Sam and other players. They contain misogynistic comments about female referees. The emails are indefensible. Gruden apologizes, but the damage is done. Within hours, sponsors are pulling out. Players are demanding answers. The league is in crisis. John Gruden resigns as head coach of the Raiders. His career in professional football is over. But here is where the scandal becomes something larger than one coach's offensive emails. The emails were discovered during an NFL investigation into the Washington Commanders' workplace culture. The league had access to over 650,000 emails. Only Gruden's emails were leaked to the press.
Why? Why were Gruden's emails specifically targeted when the investigation uncovered communication from hundreds of league employees? Gruden believes he knows the answer. He sued the NFL, claiming he was selectively targeted because of his lawsuit against the league years earlier regarding his contract with the Raiders. The NFL fought to dismiss the case. They claimed Gruden had no grounds to sue. But in May 2024, the Nevada Supreme Court ruled that Gruden's lawsuit could proceed. The ruling means that Gruden will get discovery. The NFL will have to reveal who leaked his emails and why. The league's internal communications about the investigation will become public. This scandal is not over. It is ongoing, and it may eventually expose corruption at the highest levels of the NFL. The Raiders are collateral damage in a war between John Gruden and the league. A coach they loved was destroyed by emails that the NFL selectively released for reasons they refuse to explain. That is scandal number 1, and it may be the scandal that finally forces the NFL to answer for decades of manipulating narratives to protect their interests. These 10 scandals represent the darkest moments in Raiders history. Violence, drugs, betrayal, tragedy, death. But here is what the NFL does not understand. The Raiders have survived all of it. The franchise is still here. The fan base is still loyal. The silver and black endures. Because Raiders fans do not demand perfection. They demand honesty. They demand toughness. They demand that their team never surrenders. And through 50 years of scandal, the Raiders have never surrendered. If this countdown made you realize how much the Raiders have endured, subscribe to this channel. We tell the stories the league wants buried. Share this video with anyone who needs to understand that the Raiders are not just a football team. They are a war against conformity that has lasted 5 decades. Comment below with the scandal that shocked you most. And remember, the silver and black does not apologize for its past. It owns it. Just win, baby, no matter what the world throws at you.